story is about the lack of sex education being taught in Oklahoma City Public Schools, which is the state's largest school district. Apparently state school districts are not required to teach sex education. They are required to teach AIDS prevention education. And some administrators are concerned, educators are concerned that kids are not receiving comprehensive sex education, and that the information they're receiving is either wrong or they're getting it from their peers. And there's also a concern that parents aren't really having these discussions with their kids at home. And the schools are not necessarily teaching it, human sexuality and contraception anymore and any of those things. They're basically teaching abstinence, complete abstinence.
Back in the early 80s, we had a more formal sexuality education program. Everybody that taught was trained. We had specific trainings that we went through, and we delivered a more comprehensive sexuality curriculum program. As the years rolled by, then the next thing that really happened that kind of made a few changes was the legislation for HIV/AIDS education in the schools. We came in, we did training again. We ran that primarily through our science classes because that's where all students, we know that we'll see every single student. Parallel to that, we also had the ancillary courses or the elective courses where some of that might have been picked up in a family life type program. I would say probably in the early 90s, we went through another change in the district, and it seemed like our program became more of a 100% abstinence-based program. They really didn't want some of the other, like they didn't want you to discuss contraception and those kinds of things. So we just took it from your surefire, safest way to avoid anything would be to practice abstinence.
And then how has it changed since
then? Since then, I think with just a change in society, we do still have our HIV that's probably still done in our science classes, and then in our elective classes, like we have marriage and family, adult and family living, and a course called healthful living. Those are courses, and then also physiology, because the reproduction cycle and those things would happen there. I wouldn't say that it's a full-blown, but there are units that specifically address sexuality within relationships and things like that. And with high school kids, you're always going to get questions, and so our teachers are going to try to answer those as honestly as possible.